I'm actually going to skip ahead a step and just demonstrate what the circuit does whenever you actually break the LEDs. Um, Whenever I was showing you before, when you hit the turn signal, see how it like flickers? Like this is just me unplugging and plugging my power back in. But it flickers for like a split second and then goes out. And that, I think that's the indication circuit. For some reason it just turns the entire thing off and informs the car. And the way that I got around that, there's a pin, or there's a transistor called Q8 on the half ring. You have to take ground from P1 and solder a jumper, stupid bug, solder a jumper from Q8 on this pin to the ground. And to demonstrate that, I just have a jumper wire here to show you what it does. But so let's just say, okay, I just applied power and there's still power to it, but it's turned off. So if I take my jumper wire and connect it from P1 to Q8, which is right around this region, it's really hard to see, but if you touch it to the connection on that pin, you can see the full ring lights, and that's just the shut-off override for the circuit. And you'll notice the half ring doesn't light. That's because I broke the controlling connections, so these can't light regardless until I actually get the other part of my circuit done. But this is how that part of the circuit works. And the difficult part will be soldering to this little guy, because, let's see, I might have to solder it on the front face of the circuit because there's nothing on the back of it. But you can see a little guy there. You just gotta be really careful soldering this stuff. But soldering to P1, it'll be easy just right on the front here. So that's the light disable trick. Okay, I got the jumper from Q8 to ground. You can see Q8 right here, and there's 3 pins. There's 2 on the back side and then 1 on the front side. And based on what I drew on the back side, you want it on that pin, so the upper pin. And I use my voltmeter to check between that pin and this resistor that's above here, and they're actually connected. So that's why my wire kind of overlaps. But I soldered it on the front face here. I looped it through one of these wires, and these just pretty much just go, or the wire itself comes out one side and they solder it down. So it made for a nice little like harness, so that way this wire isn't gonna like shimmy and get loose. And then I just wrapped it up through, sorry for the zoom, this is on close mode so I can talk about this, but I wrapped it up through the harness going between the circuit boards, and then wrapped it down and actually soldered it to P1, which is the ground connection. So that's how I shorted out, and I'll give you a demo once I change my camera setting. So before, without that jumper between Q8 and ground that I have added in here now, you saw with the turn signal powered up, the full ring would flicker and then just turn off. But now, with the power on, it just completely lights. So that's the disable feature tricked out. And now the next thing I have to do to actually trick out the car to make it not think that the taillights are out, there's a jumper that I'm going to solder from R13 to R2. So R13 and Q4 on the half ring over here. So here's Q4 and R13. And we want to solder a jumper from in between these two over to Q2 and R2 of the full ring. So Q2 and R2 are right here. So that'll be the next step. Pretty much what that does, it'll take power, or the ground output power, and apply some of it to here, and that ground output is what goes through the indication circuit and tells the car, hey, I'm lighting or I'm not lighting. And you will notice that it will steal from the LEDs on this side, but once I get the rest of the circuit connected together, I can actually adjust that and make it so you don't even notice it. So I'll get that jumper on real quick, which is just soldering from this resistor to this resistor. Alright, so the jumper between R13 and R2 is now added. Not sure how good my camera is going to zoom, but you can see this other brown wire I have strung in here. I looped it through this bottom wire connection like I did with the other side, and what I try to avoid is being within this little black circle, because those black circles are where these little lens cups are going to sit. So you want to avoid actually getting your wire pinched in any of those. But I ran the connection up as I show here to R13, strung it through the wire, and I brought it up through this little bunch, and then stuck it through this little loop, and then soldered it up here. It looks kind of jumbled because that was a really tight spot to solder, but it's soldered on there. And I actually just took this out to my car, and the way to test that your two trick methods actually work is to plug it into the car, start the car, and then put the turn signal on. And within a few seconds, if these are not soldered properly, the car will actually start flickering fast and say your taillight's out. But if the first connection is made from what was that, Q8 to ground, and from R13 to R2, if you have both of those made, then you'll be able to you'll be able to start the car and put on the right, or whatever turn signal it is, and it will not tell you that it's out. And at this point, since I broke those two control connections, the half ring won't light, the full ring will light, just like you see here. But the car won't have an issue with it with those two additions. And with this jumper from R13 to R2, you can see these are actually kind of lit up a little bit, and that's because R2 was pretty much the ground output from Q2, and some of that ground is escaping through here. But that's how the indication works. I'm stealing a little bit of the grounding effect from the full ring to make the half ring think that it's actually lighting.